and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to recap all that was Atlanta, as well as look ahead to New Hampshire, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, the Atlanta race was absolutely spectacular, except for the fact that Chris Buescher went down in a ball of flames like we had anticipated with how heavy I went in on him. But your day made up for it as you were seeing a ton of green.
Yeah, we will recap the betting board. It was a wild race. Christopher Bell, just like all kinds of issues, as like I'm just done betting him on outrights. Like I don't know, like between the tire issues and just like he's pulling out of the pits and now his tires falling off, and it's just there's always something with that guy. And of course Stenhouse is having his issues, and Eric Jones, and it's just and then yeah, I don't know. We'll recap all that. It was a fun race. Brad Doherty and Kyle Petty were talking though, and they were saying it was like the best race of the season. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there. Like it was fun. Obviously, it's crazy and wild stuff happened, but in terms of pure racing, I don't know that it was the best of the season.
I mean, it for entertainment value, I would have to say it definitely was up there for me. Just seeing the amount of times that people were passing each other, whether it was for the lead or as you see in F1, like they have to focus on, back in the pack racing because the lead is already decided. But there was a ton of that this weekend. You never really had a good feeling as to who was actually going to wind up winning the race.
That's true.
Which I think made it as exciting as what they were talking about.
Yeah, and there was really like 6 or 7 guys that had a legitimate chance to win it. Some new names like Corey LaJoy had a phenomenal race. I felt so bad for that guy.
Man.
He should have had a top 3, top 5 type finish. Ended up
I should have cashed that top 10.
Yeah, like he was well deserving of that. Led some laps. It was good to see. But yeah, it was a fun race. It was I think the new Atlanta setup might be my favorite track. Just the combination of super speedway race, but not really a full super speedway. I don't know. It's just I think the way the race it provides is fun, and the drivers are learning it. And with the new cars, it's really interesting. One other news item before we dive into this week's race, I just think is interesting is 2311. They signed a new car. They have Tyler Reddick. He starts in 2024. That will make the rest of 2022 and the rest of and all of 2023 a little interesting.
Yes.
But it is something. I guess Bob Pockrass was talking about it, and it sounds like Denny's kind of been wanting this to happen for a little while, and he's been kind of working behind the scenes to make it happen. My guess is that win a couple weeks ago probably helped seal that. Hey, yeah, this guy is legitimate, and we need to go lock him down now. And it's really interesting, obviously, getting ahead of the game, getting a young driver who we've seen a lot out of and think can be very, very good. And we'll figure out what 2311's plan is. Obviously, Bubba's locked in, Reddick's locked in. Are they going to 3 cars? And Kurt Busch and or somebody else will end up taking that 3rd seat, or are they going to go to 2 cars for a while? It'll be interesting to see. But I guess just what was your overall thoughts when that news broke, and what that could be for 2311 going forward?
I mean, it just solidifies them as a legit potential contender in the Cup Series. I mean, now you have 2 of the most young, most polarizing drivers in the sport going to be rostered for them, and Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, who is going to probably bring with him a bunch of different sponsors that they wouldn't have normally seen for the 2311 team. Bubba is Bubba Wallace. I mean, everything that comes with him. So you're going to have all the attention with that. Now you got the backing of Denny Hamlin, the Michael Jordan brand itself. This is definitely, you can tell that the sport is transitioning into less of the good old boys network, and these younger teams are starting to make some noise. Trackhouse, 2311, even the the JTG team is like looking pretty good with a single car. I think it's looking great. The sport
Yeah.
is only going to get better. I think it's just they're going to gain popularity from this kind of move, and I'm ecstatic to see what happens going
Yeah,
forward here.
we'll see what happens to RCR too. Obviously, they'll have to make
Yeah,
some decisions. I don't know if they go fold in with another team and kind of make a bigger team, but yeah, 2311 is trying to be one of the dominant forces in NASCAR, and they're building quite a roster. If they can add a fourth guy, I mean, they could be competing with Hendrick and those type of teams. Obviously, they'll have a lot of winning they have to do. As Chase Elliott won the race in Atlanta, it was good to see the hometown kid get it done. But I will pull up our betting card, and as Brian mentioned, you can see all the green. It was a phenomenal week. Interesting. Austin Cindric really came through when it mattered most. I don't feel like he was a top 3 car most of the day, but he did go all the way to the back of the field and still make it all the way back up to the front. So he clearly has a comfort at this track. He clearly
yeah,
likes to drive here, but his car, it never felt like it was fast enough to actually win the race. I felt like he was kind of bad. I was hoping to nail a top 5 with him and then just kind of figure it out from there. But yeah, he came through in a big way for me, not only getting the top 5, getting the top 10, but my big bet on him to be top 4 at plus 750 was a nice cash. Actually had that at night 9-1 thanks to our friends over offshore. So I was really happy to hit that. Obviously, Christopher Bell could not get it done. Almirola came through in the clutch. You just a bottle of consistency. Happy to hit that. William Byron, rough week for him.
yeah.
Not the greatest, but Cindric over Harvick was great. Cindric over Bowman was great. Suarez over Logano was great. Logano 4 wheels off the track at one point, managed to get back up into that kind of top 10-ish conversation that had another issue. So things just went poorly for him. And of course, Brad Keselowski, man, it's just what are we doing? We should be. There's a reason why you fade him every week, Brian. And
That's right.
he was looking good. He was making noise, and at the end of the race, he was out of the way. So, pretty solid week. Eric Jones felt like he had a chance to win towards the end, stage 3, but then things went the way things typically go for Eric Jones, and kind of.
The one thing I will say about this track, I did find it interesting that like once somebody jumped into the lead, the drivers kind of figured out like if you tried to pass low, that was almost impossible unless you had like a rocket ship
Yeah.
of a run against that guy. So I wonder if they're going to make any adjustments to the cars or what coming into this track next year, because like that is one thing that isn't as fun, especially at this type of like super speedway type race where like somebody in the lead shouldn't necessarily be able to just hold the lead for as many laps
Yeah.
as these guys were.
Yeah, you definitely needed a push. And I think that we've seen that kind of in general this year with the new car. Like if you can get to clean
It's like
air,
clean air.
you have a real shot. So
Yeah.
I kind of just cruising and being out front. I did think there was some impressive moves by Chase Elliott where he kind of dove down to the bottom, but then was able to get back and they were kind of passing each other. So yeah, I think it was more of a fun race than I wanted. Obviously, always dangerous to go heavy on a super speedway race because all your bets could be out by the end of stage 1, and then you're really just sitting there just wondering what you did. But I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Obviously, not as strong for you, but did hit some solid wagers, including your best bet of Blaney over Logano, and at Eric Jones top 10. It should have been probably better, but a top 10 is a top 10, and plus 170. That's a nice payday. You also have Christopher Bell over Joey Logano, so you're able to fade your nemesis, which is great. And then Eric Jones on the top 5. So, yeah, pretty solid week. So overall, it's coming together. I thought I had better numbers. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I was looking at something else. That doesn't seem right. I thought it was 3 something. Anyways, climbing myself out of the hole. Brian's just putting along, staying around where he was. But things are getting better. Two of the last 3 weeks have been really good for me, so I'm very, very happy. Let's head over and look at DraftKings. Our lineup looked okay at points. Unfortunately, Kurt Busch going out towards the end and Ricky Stenhouse being Ricky Stenhouse really put a damper on kind of what our lineup could be. Eric Jones obviously was the play. Keselowski was fine, even though he finished 18th because he started 31st. Bubba ended up 14th, started 32nd. Happy to have it. The Hamlin stuff, man, that guy, he had some rough breaks, and obviously
Toyotas in general.
Yeah, and him and Ross Chastain are gonna have. There's something's gonna happen, Brian. And as I texted you on, I think Sunday, we both hold outrights on Ross Chastain to win the Cup championship. I feel like it's gonna come down to the final race. Ross Chastain's gonna win the championship, and Denny's gonna be like, "Actually, you're not," and just spin him out. And I'm just going to be livid because we got nice numbers on there. This was my best lineup of the week, even though the Busch brothers really didn't do a lot for me. Cindric had a nice day. Almirola had a really nice day. Eric Jones and Brad Keselowski. If I'd have, that's some good salary. I could have spent that in a lot of other places and done better, but I will take that. The single entries, the 3 max, those kind of things are kind of my favorites right now, and I feel like there's a lot better advantage there than is someone who's not doing 150 lineups.
Exactly.
This is a great way to attack attack DraftKings. So cruising along, still a solid week, only a little loss. I will happily take that. And now it's time to go to this week's race. It's called the Ambetter 301 because, sure. We'll start at the top. Unlike super speedways, we have a very tight top of the board. Back to kind of what we're used to. Ryan Blaney is your favorite, 6-1. Logano 7-1. Kyle Busch is 5-1 at Caesars, but then 7-1 everywhere else. So don't bet him at Caesars if you like him. Hamlin 9, 8 or 9, Truex 8 or 9. Last week's winner Chase Elliott between 7 and 9. We'll cut it off there. Where's your head and potentially your dollars going this week at the top of the board?
I don't know how anybody right now can back a Toyota, seeing that the way that they've performed. I know last week, again, like Atlanta, racing like that super speedway style isn't necessarily a good measuring point for any manufacturer or driver, but the Toyotas right now haven't shown me much. I mean, Chase Elliott, regardless of where he's going right now, is absolutely on fire. He's looked great in like 3 of the last 4 races. So I think Elliott, if you could get him at that 10-1 number, or even 9-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook, I think that's a great number. I know he's not been the greatest here at New Hampshire, but you got to ride the hot hand sometimes, and he's not the favorite. It's interesting that Ryan Blaney is the favorite, or at the top, near the top of the board. I mean, again, he finishes 5th, not necessarily showing the speed to compete for the win. So I don't know if I can get there with him this week.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. Obviously, Hamlin is somebody that I'm interested in, but his run at intermediate tracks, especially the 1-milers, has been pretty solid. But this year, it just has not been good. 34th at Gateway, 21st at Dover, 13th at Phoenix. Like, the new car has not really been great to him. Although at Dover, he did lead 67 laps. So probably had some sort of car issue at the end, which kind of makes his numbers look a little worse. But this top of the board is not super appealing. I think Blaney would be the option if I had to go there, but I don't know that I'm in love with any of the names. Usually there's at least a name or two that jump out. Obviously Chase Elliott, 2 wins in his last 3 races, really rounding into great form. looks really good. I think going to the next group is really interesting. Chastain and Larson both at 10 or 12 to 1. Christopher Bell at 15 or 18. Kevin Harvick's number is really pretty nice here, but another guy that in 2022 has been more of like a top 5, top 10 guy at these kind of tracks. William Byron, you can get, the low is 15, but you can get a 20 at most books.
Let me just say too, I mean, this might be baked into these numbers, is that 14 of the last 15 winners at New Hampshire have drove a Ford or a Toyota.
Okay.
And the only person that drove a Chevrolet was actually Kevin Harvick in one of his 3 wins here over the last, I think, 5 or 6 years. So it's like nobody that's driving for Hendrick, Trackhouse, or any of those other teams that are currently driving Chevrolets has really had success near the top of the board at this track of late. So it's interesting to see the numbers kind of indicating that, showing like the majority of Fords and Toyotas at the top of the board.
Yeah. It might be Kyle Larson time. It might be time to go back to the well. I know this season hasn't been quite as based on last year. He was so dominant. It's hard to get back to him, but
yeah,
my God, this guy at 1 mile tracks has been amazing. He actually, 2 of his decent finishes were at Dover at 6th and Gateway it was 12th. He even had a nice finish, led some laps at Dover, but, obviously won the championship at Phoenix last year, 2nd at Dover, 7th at New Hampshire, 7th at Phoenix, 1 at Dover. Like, this is a guy who does really well on these style of tracks. We're getting a number that makes a lot more sense for where he is currently sitting. And so that 12 to 1 number, I think, is going to be too hard for me to pass on. And I am going to dive in on Kyle Larson at 12 to 1.
Yeah, that's one of those numbers, kind of like last week we talked about. Of course, neither of us bet it, but like Chase Elliott at 10 to 1 last week in Atlanta was a great number just because of like how good he's driven at his hometown. And so getting Larson at that 10 or 12 to 1 number at tracks that he was dominating last year. He hasn't been the greatest this year, but he's a guy who could pop at any track. And then for me, looking right above him, Ross Chastain 10 to 1. Yeah. I know you run the risk of somebody running him off the road here, but this is a guy that's finished top 10 in the last 3 of these size races, Phoenix, Dover, and Gateway. He's done really good at all those. He finished runner-up at Phoenix earlier on this year. Chastain finished inside the top 10 this last weekend in Atlanta with a half torn up car. Like, you could say what you want about him driving too aggressively and causing a bunch of accidents, but he's one of the best drivers in the sport right now and not somebody I'd bet against.
Yep. And as we talked about last week, Trackhouse is just, their cars are dialed each and every week. Suarez even had a nice performance.
Yeah.
Chastain looked really good. I think if his car isn't all taped up, he might win that race. Looking at the thing that actually was interesting to me, I was looking at the Cup standings. Chase Elliott, obviously your number 1 with the 3 wins, but behind him, Ryan Blaney without a win, which is interesting. Ross Chastain at 3rd, Kyle Larson at 4th, despite, a quote unquote underwhelming season, and then Kyle Busch, that just kind of jumped out to me a little bit, but these guys have been really good all year long, and obviously there's a reason why they're kind of priced in. But yeah, I think Larson and Chastain kind of in this range both make a ton of sense.
Something that's interesting to look at too is if you were to sprinkle, you just pick 3 guys this week, Chastain, Larson, and Elliott, go to whatever sports book, if they're available to you, has their best number. You place a little chunk on all 3 of those guys. You're sitting pretty with 3 of the top, 8 drivers in the sport right now. So
yeah, I actually like that call quite a bit, and then you just kind of, if there's other drivers you like, you kind of go to the head-to-heads, go to the top 3s, go to the top 5s, that kind of stuff, and find ways to get exposure. Speaking of guys we might want exposure to, but maybe not on the outright card, the aforementioned Tyler Reddick, who got that new deal. Almirola, who as we talked about, got his only win here last year. Chase Briscoe, Team Trackhouse Daniel Suarez, Kurt Busch, all floating around that 25 to 1 number. Any outrights in this range that you're willing to get to?
I mean, Tyler Reddick has been great. Not at this type of track. I like Suarez.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this last week. If you like Chastain at a 10-1 number for the same team, Suarez's car has been right up to par with Chastain most weeks. So getting that extra, like over double the amount of juice there, I think is a good value. And then Kurt Busch has run near the front at almost every single track. It's just whether or not he can put it all together towards the end of the race.
Yep. Almirola is going to be somebody that when we talk top 5, top 10 market, I think I'll find myself gravitating towards. I'll be curious to see what the numbers are listed at, but he's a guy that even in the new car where he hasn't been that great, has done well enough at this style of track that I think he will be a compelling option. Obviously last week looked pretty good. So that is those range. Then we kind of dive down. This is interesting range. So Alex Bowman, 30-1. His number ping pongs more than any driver that I see. Most drivers kind of stay in their little quadrant of the betting board. And depending on what race and how he's performing recently, and if he's coming off a win, Bowman's either way up or way down or somewhere in between. Like he really moves. Like we've seen him at single digit to 1. We've seen him at 30, 40 to 1. We've seen him somewhere, kind of in that 15 to 20 range. Really interesting to see him kind of sit here. Cindric also here is we drop down significantly to 50 and then obviously fall off again 75 and 100. Your boy Chris Buescher down here at 100. Any interest outrights in this range, or should we move on? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, this is.
I mean, just being completely honest. I have zero faith in any of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking outrights, this is not the place to look. Let's go to the top 10 window and see what we can find, because I think there may be more potential for us to hit some numbers. And as you can see, the drivers kind of get shuffled when we look at things like top 10 just because they're so consistent. Obviously dive down. That's a pretty good number on Kyle Larson. If you get that number, I mean, I don't think that exists, but that's fine. Let me know. Okay, so we're talking Eric Almirola at -110 to top 10. He's really good at these tracks. I don't know if that's that good of a number though. Like that's
he's the kind of guy that I like. A number like that, I'd probably wait till after qualifying.
Yeah.
To see if maybe him qualify, 14th, 15th. Maybe you get a little bit better number, maybe even money.
And we'll flip over and look at head-to-heads because, like, if I could get a head-to-head against a guy that, even if he finishes 12th, he just beats him, then at -110, I think I'd rather go there.
Yeah.
Daniel Suarez, -110. Now, that's kind of fun. I think that could be something I could find myself gravitating towards. The next little chunk, Kurt Busch, kind of in that range, Alex Bowman. And then we just dropped to Michael McDowell. Oh, because this number is thrown off. That's why.
That's definitely throwing a wrench into what his actual.
I really wish I could tweak the Action Network big board because I think there is some potential. Any of these kind of guys compelling options to you? Anything that you're saying, wow, I think I could find myself getting there?
I mean, Cindric to me is a good enough driver to where he could crack the top 10 at almost any single track. But it's just one of those things, like we've seen him finish either inside the top 5 or finish outside the top 20. There really is not too much in between with him. So for him, I'd prefer him to be more like that 2.5 to 1 number. Keselowski, I'll never, you'll never see me have him on any card.
Yeah, it's been a rough run at the mile-long tracks for old Cindric. He had 24th in Phoenix. He had 36th in Dover. Obviously had some issues. Only did 91 laps. And then Gateway actually led 26 laps, but ended up finishing 11th. Started second, though, so maybe he was figuring some stuff out. I think Bowman's interesting. Obviously, not traditionally, like hasn't been amazing in this car, and it's kind of been all over the place. But did finish 5th at Dover. Was 9th at New Hampshire last year. A top 10 on him at plus money is kind of interesting. I'm going to take this 105. It's probably silly. I like to go back to the well on Alex Bowman. Maybe I overrate him a little bit in my head because I feel like I've done this a couple times and it has not worked out. But I think he's too good of a driver at plus money to top 10 at a track where he has had success and has shown he can be pretty productive. Any longer shots we like that might be a sneaky top 10 type driver? Obviously it's not like last week, right? Where we have so much potential for some of these names to kind of jump up, but anybody else that if you wanted to take a little more of a shot, you might be interested in?
Yeah, I tweeted about it. I think it was yesterday. Cole Custer, he's also in that plus 850 range over at FanDuel. I mean, I'm not like going out and mortgage the house on this guy or
No.
by any means, but he's got an 8th and a 14th in his 2 Cup Series races at New Hampshire. He finished runner-up in his last Xfinity event in 2019 at this track. He's performed pretty good at Phoenix. Finishing inside the top 16 each of the last, I think, 4 straight times there. He's not the greatest driver. He's not going to compete for the win, but if everything goes right for him and he stays on the track, there is a good chance that he cracks that top 10. And at plus 850, like, you're not having to wager very much to come home a happy camper.
Yeah. I mean, that's put $10 on it, call it a day. Put $5 on it, call it a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Sprinkle that into your betting card. I think that makes sense. Let's head over to DraftKings and look at some head-to-head bets we can look at and potentially add to the card. So far, I feel like it's going to be a little bit lighter of a week, but when I say that, we talk on Saturday, and by the end of the pod, I have 20 bets down, but that's okay. Interesting to see Byron so heavily favored over Bowman here. I know Byron's been a much better driver this year and has had a lot more success, but this is interesting. That's really compelling. Like I said, I'm a glutton for the Bowman punishment.
Something else that's interesting about Byron too, like I haven't checked in on his numbers in a few races, but when you really look at his season and you take a little bit of a deeper dive there, he's either finishing like winning a race or finishing inside the top like 3 to 4, or he is not finishing very good at all. So it's not like he's having one of those consistently good seasons where he's finishing every single race inside the top 10 or inside the top 12. Kind of like last year, he's actually reverted back to his old like either pop or absolutely suck driving style this season.
And his run of success or lack thereof at intermediate tracks is just not there. With the 2022 car, 19th at Gateway, 22nd at Dover, 18th at Phoenix, was 21st at New Hampshire and 17th at Phoenix last year. He obviously had a nice run of 4th, 9th, 8th, 4th but that was just Phoenix and Dover. But a lot of 20s, a lot of teens. I'm adding that to the card. Bowman over Byron feels like the number this week. I mean, I get it. People that see these two names and maybe there's a little more interest there, and obviously they're getting money on Byron, so they're moving that accordingly. But I will take the plus money. I've been kind of going, oh, here's a head-to-head that has plus money. Let me take advantage of the number, because a lot of times that's going to move, and Byron finishes or qualifies 17th and Bowman qualifies 9th, and all of a sudden that's going to flip. So I will take my candy when I can get it. This feels like a very Brian Twining head-to-head.
Oh yeah, I've already I actually just added that plus money against Joey Logano with Ross Chastain. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, how is Logano minus 125 versus Chastain, but Chase Elliott's even money against Chastain?
I'm telling you, man, it's the manufacturer discrepancy that's built into these numbers. I mean, there's definitely something to the fact that Chevrolet has won here once over the last 15 races. So.
Yeah, no, it's completely interesting. It's very interesting and completely valid. So Kyle Busch versus Joey Logano. Briscoe versus Reddick is interesting. I kind of like Reddick.
I added the Red Dog there.
Yeah, I think that's the move. I'm gonna add that too. Briscoe has not been good at this track. And I just don't know how the whole new contract thing is going to affect it. My guess is I'm putting too much thought into that, but go from there. Chase Elliott plus money versus Kyle Busch. Like it really is just a matter of manufacturer and like expectations, right? Like
It's
because
got to be
any other track, there's no way that that's happening.
No.
Reddick versus Harvick. See, at this point, I'm a little more like this makes more sense. Harvick, I feel like is going to be 8th, like, and Reddick's either going to be way in front of him or way behind him. But we'll have to see.
You know, something interesting. Kevin Harvick. You know, he has the 4th best average finish on the season. Dude is just quietly, just doing his thing, just finishing races inside the top 10. And
yeah, he's doing what he did last year, only a little bit better, and actually having chances to win a few of these races. So, shouts to the old man, just cruising along, doing his thing, getting the bills paid for his sponsors and all that stuff. Kyle Busch versus Ryan Blaney, that all kind of makes sense. There's no big outliers. I guess for me, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, but like when we're looking for these, obviously, I want compelling. Like if there's guys I truly believe in versus guys I don't think are very good, I'm gonna find opportunities to attack there, and then I'm just gonna look for. I'm just going to look for mispriced numbers. And I think if I can get a plus number on a driver that I think it's close enough or I like a little bit better, I will take that. Like Christopher Bell versus William Byron is something that I'm really compelled to do. I'm just so worried about Christopher Bell. Like he does not know how, like between his pit crew and I don't know what it is, but it's just like they can't get through the end of the race without a wheel falling off or brake issue or something. So like that always, like after last week, I'm gonna need to take a week off, even though I like that number. I'm gonna take Daniel Suarez over Chase Briscoe too. Fade Briscoe week.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. My last 2 weeks of fading certain drivers has worked out well, so I'm sure I'll get smacked in the face this week. But Team Trackhouse, like they're legit, they're solid, and I'm and has been really good. So I will keep going to the well as I can. Wow, Cindric over Almirola minus 135. I mean I would rather have Almirola,
really aggressive,
but that feels aggressive, yeah, especially for Almirola. I'm gonna look at that. I might add that. We'll see.
Again, that's just another instance of betting the number. Just because, like, if Ford is so good here, I mean, Ford has won the last 4 trips to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yes, Almirola won last year, but that Stewart-Haas team has not looked that good. And Cindric is coming off of a really good performance in Atlanta. I mean, Almirola did good too, but I have a little more faith in the Penske cars. Not that they've been very much or that much better than SHR, but I have a little more faith in them. So getting that such good juice on that is probably not something to pass.
Yeah. And yet here we go, passing on it. Let's go back to the bet tracker. Let's talk about where our bets are at and then give the people a best bet before we get out of here. So a light card thus far. As I mentioned, I would expect to see a handful of names get added to this between now and Sunday. Obviously, we will be back Sunday morning in your feed. Appreciate everybody who checked out last week's show. We had a nice reception. Obviously, if you are enjoying the show, make sure you smash that thumbs up. Make sure you hit the subscribe. And make sure we get to 500 subs before the NASCAR playoffs so I can give away the Christopher Bell signed mini helmet.
He does not want to give it to me, folks.
No, I don't want to give it to Brian. No chance. But we are plugging along. We got a nice little bump between last week and this week. Let's see if we can do that again. Hell, if we get to 450, maybe I'll even consider it. We'll see. But so far I have Kyle Larson on the outright. 12-1 is just a number I couldn't pass on. I still think he's very, very good. And I will take my shots. I will probably find a way to get a little more exposure to him because I do think he's going to have a good race. But I, head to head, the Chase Elliott, who's on fire, even though his lack of production here is compelling. But Alex Bowman top 10 plus money. I will take a shot on that. Reddick versus Briscoe. Suarez versus Briscoe. Fade Chase Briscoe week is upon us. And my best bet is Alex Bowman over William Byron.
Woo.
Because I'm a glutton for punishment. I just plus 110 on a head-to-head. Byron has not been as strong as Bowman at this track. Has not been as strong as Bowman on the mile-long tracks. And I just that number does not make sense to me. So I am jumping on that for this week. Brian Twining, break down your betting card for the people.
Yeah, so it's starting with the amazing value of Cole Custer to top 10 at plus 850. I also added Kyle Larson at 12-1. I'm following Kyle's lead here for half a unit. I also am fading Chase Briscoe, picking Tyler Reddick over him. Ross Chastain against one of my nemesis, Joey Logano. And my last addition and my best bet for the week is going to be another Tyler Reddick top 10 at minus 135. I don't understand how this number continues to be posted at less than 1 to 2. This guy is too good of a driver. I don't think he's going to let his foot off the gas at all after inking this deal with 2311. And I think he's going to continue to propel himself among some of the best drivers in the sport.
Yep. I like that call quite a bit. That's a really good number. I think, with the top 10 market with names, and especially at a track that's a lot more predictable, like at super speedways, it's harder to get to those top 10 numbers, even at compelling options. But this week, a lot easier to predict. A lot, the betting board is telling us that. So obviously, I like that call quite a bit, and I could see myself finding a way to gravitate towards that come Sunday as well. As I mentioned, we will be back on Sunday in your feed. We will have our best bets. We also have our DFS picks post qualifying. So we'll record that Saturday night. If you have any specific questions or drivers you want our feedback on, definitely drop it in the comments, as well as let us know your favorite bet for New Hampshire. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll talk to you guys next time.